and I'm from Ghana. And I traveled a very long distance to be here, up about 20 hours, and it's been very, very tiring traveling all the way from Ghana to here. And I can see you are seeing two names here, but it's just one person here. Yeah, the other one is still here, but he's here in spirit, and he's still with us here. So we came to share experiences about how C++ is in Africa and our experiences and how we made through the language. And how many of you believe that learning C++ is hard? Why is it hard? Just one person to answer for me. Why is it hard? Yeah. Okay. Okay, so we'll get to a point where we understand that C++ is not hard. You can actually learn it very easily. And so about us, so Dennis is a young and he's a growing compiler developer, but he's not here, as I told you, and he's also doing front-end web development. And he's also a technical writer. He writes very well, very, very well. And you can reach him out on Twitter. This is handle. Then it's 4 underscores and O. And I am a recent computer science graduate. I completed last year. And since I've been contributing to open source projects and learning a lot about C++, and I'm hoping to go further in the language. And currently I'm working with NetBSD operating system as a contributor. And so we do some mix of C, C++ in between in it. So you can reach me out on Twitter. Okay, so what it is to tell the African majority that you're learning C++. And if you tell them you're learning C++, they go like, why are you learning C++? What are you going to do with the language? Can you build a mobile app? Can you even design a website? Once it cannot, then mean you are wasting your time. You are not doing anything meaningful, and it has been going on for years, and there has been a very, very huge race against the language in the African side. And so if you stay on fit to learn C++, you either be discouraged or be told it is difficult to learn, you cannot learn it, stop, you are wasting your time and all these things. And I'm here to let you guys know that no, C++ can do a lot of things, and you can learn it and use them to do whatever you want to do with them. Yeah. So let's go over a brief of the African programming culture. So everyone believes programming is web or mobile app. Once you're not doing web or mobile app, you're not programming. But I know it's a direct opposite in the Western. If it's not C++, then there's no real programming. And it is very, should I say, funny. It's very funny. Yeah, and once you're not dealing with a responsive user interface, then you're also not doing programming. They want something they can actually see and have a feel with their senses that, okay, this is real programming, and that you're able to design an interface that they can use. Maybe you're a designer, like everything's more about designs. And if you tell them there is design in C++, too, they say, which design? If you tell them there is design in C++, they'll be like, there are no designs in C++ because you cannot see. Once it's a user interface design, they'll be like, okay, this is the design. That may be like someone who wants a kitchen, a design of a kitchen, and then you bring a very nice design, and now this is a design. But if you tell them, oh, there are lots of designs in C++, they're like, no, they are not designs, and it's funny as well. And there's so minimal consideration for the CLI, in it, like using the command line interface, tooling, and everything. It's not considered as programming. Everything is, as I say, interface design. And most of the people want to be users and not contributors. When they start programming, their mindset of how can I make this better, how can I improve upon this, how can I contribute to this is very, very low and not considered. And everyone wants to be a user. Everyone wants to be a user. When they start learning JavaScript, like, what can I build with JavaScript? But it's not a question of how can I make JavaScript better, or how can I use JavaScript to maybe change how some tools work or improve how some tools work. And I don't blame them, because 80 to 90% of the firms, almost 100% of the firms are doing web and mobile apps. So there is no place, absolutely no place for C++ in the African sphere. There is no place unless, I don't know, unless maybe someone decides to bring a hedge fund in Africa or something before we can start in Africa. Yeah, but currently there's no place. So if you go as a C++ developer in Africa, it's very tough out there. And we are here to debunk the idea that C++ is hard, that even through these situations, we are still able to progress with the language. Okay, and if I say no one is doing C++ in Africa, maybe I'll be lying, because most of the, when we started our first year, the first language we were taught was C++. There are lots of programming training, and they all believe that the first language to learn is C or C++, because C or C++ can help you become a good programmer. And then after that, after they get a basic idea of C or C++, then they move to their web designs. So I think I joined an ALX program, and the first language we were teaching was C. So at that time, I'd already started doing C++, and I was excited. I was doing the C, and we reached pointers. Then all of a sudden, everybody was running away that they cannot do pointers. Like, it's difficult. People were tweeting, what is pointers? What is pointers? They cannot do. So I had to start messaging people that, oh, pointers is easy, you can learn, and they are not open to it. They're like, pointers is hard. I can't. Pointers is hard. So it became more like a turning point for everybody. When you start the C++ journey, you hate pointers, you just turn your back and run away from it. Anyone who hates pointers, turn your back and run away from it. I was also a victim too. But I didn't run. I didn't understand pointers for about a year. It took me a year to get to understand how pointers really work. And so let's go over this. C++ perceived as a difficult programming language. Is it a myth or is reality? Please, can someone tell me, is it a myth to you or is reality to you? Please, is it a myth to you? I think it's a myth. You think it's a myth? Okay, is it a myth? I think it depends on what you're doing. Okay, I believe it's both a myth and a reality. Okay, from the African perspective, I believe it's both a myth and a reality, but it becomes a reality if after you've had your word with pointers and you succeed, you're able to beat pointers to the ground, you're able to defeat pointers, and there you can really say that C++ is not hard, because that's basically what is stopping a lot of people from learning the language. And people tweet about it all the time. I cannot do pointers, because they think it's a normal variable that they can print and be seeing 5, be seeing hi, be seeing hello, but they print and they are seeing some weird numbers with letters and everything mixed, and you try to understand the address system, and it's a little bit complex. It's alarming. So let me share how I had my way with pointers. I read a book, Fundamentals of C++, book by Richard. He's a professor, and I read about 3 times, twice, thrice, 4 times before I got to understand how pointers, before I got to understand the basic idea of what a pointer is and how a pointer really works. I crashed my Windows PC for about 3 times. And I didn't even know how to go about it if I meet a sec fault. And you see, Windows has this very alarming sec fault issue that you'd have to close your whatever you are doing and restart. And it was alarming. It was very sad. So I think one hot afternoon, one woman came to me that she wanted help to lodge at a hotel very near to my house, and I took her to the hotel, and when we went, the receptionist said that she's standing at a at a point pointing to where the woman's room is. So when I get there, I should take the woman inside the room she's pointing to. And I was like, it brought me back to the idea of pointers. Like, isn't this one talking about pointers? And I just browsed by it and I went home. So when I went home, I was like, and I went to read the book again, and I was like, no, this is the pointers the woman was talking about. Like, it is actually pointing to the room where the woman said I should take the person to. So it was just a one-day issue, so I just browsed over it, and I went on with whatever I was doing, trying to understand the basics. And so after some time, I read the book again, and I really had a very thorough understanding that what the woman was saying was actually right, and she's actually referring to a pointer. And I came up with an idea that, well, then why don't I see a pointer this way? That it's a real pointer. When we were in school, in our kindergarten days, we had this long bar that when we were learning how to read alphabets, you will be called, take this pointer and come, and point letter A, point letter B, point letter C, point letter D, point letter F. And I was saying that, okay, so why don't we see it as a real pointer? But now these pointers are not pointing to letters, they're pointing to hotel rooms. And now with these hotel rooms, you have the numbers, the hotel room numbers printed on the bars, the pointer bars. And when you go to your room, you will see the pointer pointing directly to your door. So if you're in room 43, you see room 43 written on the bar, and then it's pointing directly to your door. And if you want to enter the room, just push the door with the bar, and the door is going to open for you to enter. And if you want to see what is in the room, you have to open the door with the bar, and you see what's in the room. But if there's no one in the room is locked. So basically, you cannot open the room, because in hotel rooms, if no one is there, mostly the rooms are locked and the keys are with the receptionist. So if you go with a bar and you are trying to open the door, no one is there. So that's basically a concept of pointer dereferencing and pointer usage. So if you want to dereference your pointer and see the value that's your pointer is pointing to, you use your simple bar. This was a concept I was trying to explain to a lot of people to understand, and it was still tough, but in the end, some people got to understand. Some people really, really saw the value. So I came up with my own term, a nice way of learning called the environmental cross-disciplinary learning. Which is more like which is a pragmatic approach to learning where one can give relatable meaning to concepts in a particular discipline drawn from the interaction with their physical and social environment, so that in everything we learn in programming, you can find a way to relate it, even with the chair you're sitting on, with the air you breathe, with everything around you, the people you meet. I remember I told one guy that variables, the person said he didn't understand variables. Like, you remember when we were in primary, JHS, high school, we learned something called variables in maths. And then you are told variables are things that can change. And when you are trying to solve a word problem, use variables. Maybe use it to represent the age of someone. Let's say I find the age of people. So maybe we were always using X. So use X to represent the age of this person. Use Y to represent the age of this person. It is the same concept, and it's not really anything different from what we see around. It is just the same concept. So programming is actually what is going on everywhere in this world. Programming is not only just the computer, but C++ programming is actually the world. C++ programming is actually what we see around us every single time. So I am trying to give another example of how you can use this cross-disciplinary learning in our everyday lives. So in OOP, let's take classes for instance. Classes are real classes. The classes we took in our high schools, in our universities, classes are real classes. And if you want to see how, if you want to know how a class behaves, you can call one student out and you know how a class behaves. So let's say if you're in a class and every student is supposed to take, let's say 8 courses, we know that, okay, this is a class, this is actually a class. And the class is composed of students. And the students are actually the objects in the class. So if you want to get an object from the class, you need to call a student. And if you get a student, you are going to get what is actually expressed in the class. That's the same way. And if you are not getting a student, you cannot use whatever it's in the class, because the class is just more like a sphere. It's just an atmosphere, but the students are actually the objects. And so you realize that classes are real classes and not just abstract concepts. Classes are real classes. So your physics class you took, your chemistry class you took, your biology class you took, that's the classes that the programming is talking about. It's not anything weird that you should get confused about. So basically, yes. So everything that you meet in program, I remember when I was learning coroutines, I was like, these are actually our core routines, like the routines you do every day. They are your helping routines. You can pause and resume anytime. And they're like, so whatever you learn in program is not anything different from what you actually experience in our real life. And so I believe this concept is a very good way to learn program. And everything that you meet, try to relate it with your environment. And I'm sure you'll be able to get a thorough understanding of whatever you are learning. Yeah, so when you meet a concept, forget about the codes, forget about your computer, link it to your environment, understand it clearly, and come and express that understanding with your computer, and come and fight with your computer. First, focus on your environments before you come and fight with your computer. And if you focus on your environment, you definitely win the fight with your computer. You are going to definitely win. But if you focus on your computer first, the computer might last you for a year before you can actually reason after some time that this is what you're talking about. This is what you're trying to understand. So there's a lot of semantics, value, reference, copy. I remember I was trying to help someone with move semantics, and the person said he doesn't understand move semantics. I was like, stand here for me, move 5 inches from here, and he moved, and I was like, so now this is empty. And I was like, if I say stand here and I say copy yourself, so maybe you have an exact representation of yourself in the next maybe 5 meters from you. And that is why they always say copy is expensive. If you are copying very large objects, that will occupy a large amount of memory. They say copy is very expensive, because if you are in this room and you multiply yourself, let's say, by the volume of this room, this room might become empty, might become very full, and there will be no space to lodge people. But if you are here and you move yourself, you can get extra spaces in this room. So basically, what they are talking about is the move you know in real life, not any different move, not any different copy. It's what we know in real life. So a lot of semantics and all. So now, is C++ hard now? No, I don't think C++ should be hard now. If you get it, I don't think C++ should be hard now. So there's an unpopular conclusion I have drawn, that for the sake of progression, if you do not understand anything, be relentless in attempting to. Find a pride in taking a year to understand the concepts. Find a pride in taking months to understand the concepts, not just giving up. Find a pride in taking weeks, months, and even if you don't understand, there should be joy that you don't understand, because you know in the process of not understanding, you are going to meet more things, you are going to learn, you are going to understand well. And by the time you get to your point of understanding, you have accumulated, maybe you're supposed to understand the term, and maybe it's taking you over a year to get the understanding. By the time you get through that understanding, you would have accumulated over 3 times what you're looking for to understand. So as programmers, we shouldn't be in a rush to understand concepts. Yes, we should take our time, relax, and even if it will take us 10 years to understand a simple concept, yes, we should be ready for it, because it's a learning journey, and we are not supposed to just stay away or brush everything off after 5 months of receiving beatings from the computer. So beyond the learning strategies, how do you keep going on as a programmer in an environment where there are no billion-dollar hedge funds using C++, automotive industries writing C++, operating systems writing C++, graphic software industries using C++, chip makers writing C++, and also I'm very, very, very isolated from the central development and communications in C++. And you have to travel very long distance to meaningfully share thoughts and contribution, like joining a conference or participation in a meetup and all these things. So how do you keep going as a programmer? Because if there's no motivation, I don't think anyone can keep going as a programmer. If there's no motivation, yeah, so the motivation factor is very, very important. But how do you keep going as a programmer if there is no motivation and you have to get yourself motivated? So you have to seek purpose and fulfillment. And as a C++ programmer, you should be purpose-driven and write code for something bigger. When we were in school, we were always told that, oh, get into tech, you get money, get into tech is the way to riches. Yeah, so right now, a lot of people are trying to get into tech because they know if you are done, there's hot cake job for you, you can work at Google. That's what we're told. You can work at Microsoft, you can work at all these big companies. And I believe money is good, but if that is your sole purpose of being a programmer, I believe you'd have to change it a little bit. Money is very, very good, but if you want to be a very good programmer, if you want to be a very, very good programmer, put money secondary and chase purpose and fulfillment. And the purpose and fulfillment is going to draw the money because no one in this world rejects the best. I'm not sure Google would like to employ someone who is not the best. Every company wants to hire the best programmers. I don't know. I'm not a recruiter myself, but if I own a company, I wouldn't like to reject the best. So I know everyone would want to hire the best. So as programmers, we shouldn't be on the hot pursuit for money, but we should rather chase purpose. We should rather seek fulfillment. And you automatically have a bigger task when you decide to write C++, because there are lots of firms that, like, C++ is very broad. And if you start doing C++, know that you have a job for a lot of fields, a lot of people, because currently the population of the world using software, especially system software, is almost about 30%. I did a short survey on that. Forgive me, I forgot to put it here, but almost about 30% using system software written in C++ in over 7 to 8 billion people. So you know you have a big job to do if you're learning C++, if you're trying to write C++, because the field of possible influence are large and numerous. I had to do this argument in a night. I didn't sleep arguing with a friend over this. I was sweating all over. My body was just sweating all over because I wanted the person to understand that, no, C++ is a very broad language. It's used in the automotive industry, the finance industry, everywhere. So you should know that you have something bigger than yourself to do if you decide to write C++, because it's not a small job. It's definitely not a small job. And spark your intellectual curiosity. So how will we define intellectual curiosity? So we say it's a desire to learn more about the world and find answers to deeper questions. But I would say not accepting everything for what they are, but rather finding the why and how to every single bit of instruction, concept, command that comes along your path. I remember when I was learning Git the first time, someone said, type git push, and you are going to get your code base to the remote. I was like, why should I type git? What is in the computer that is making me to type git to do all this work? And he said, oh, that's how it is. And I was like, I don't want to understand like that because I want to know, maybe tell me, is there any instruction in the microprocessor that has git in it that I have to type for it? And the person said, oh, that's how it is. I was like, nah, I can't understand like that. And I said, okay, so why should I type push? Because I know computers don't understand English. They understand binary. So why should I type normal English for the computer to do a job for me? And the person said, oh, that's how it is. And I'm like, no, I can't accept like that, because if everything that you were learning, take it as it is, take it as it is, and it's like you don't see yourself making any progress. You don't see yourself. It took me over 2 years to understand that was a simple main program with command line options that you've written, and then you've sent your executable to path just so you can access it from everywhere without doing any complex stuff. And I was like, so if we accept everything for what they are, we are actually not going to learn, because finding what actually goes on in every single bit of instruction and command in the computer really helps. It really, really helps. Really, really spark your growth. Really be very open to every bit of instruction. Don't accept things for what they are and how they are and how you are being told. No. It's a way programmers, as if you want to call ourselves good programmers, it's a way we should do away with. It's a practice we should do away with. And I remember when I started, I didn't know what a library was. So I was learning map, and they said, so I thought map was part of the language, like just an internal feature in the language, STD map. So I got a chance to contribute to an open source project, and I was supposed to interpret the STD map. And I was like, so STD map is a library. It's something external from the language that was written by people using the language. And like, I never knew until I started contributing to open source, and we were supposed to go forward with work, but I had to stay and really, really read about libraries before I could move on with whatever work we're doing. And initially it was an early phase, and it was worrying, but I think it paid off. It paid off. It paid off. It really, really paid off. So I always tell people not to accept everything for what they are. Find out every single bit of instruction. There are lots to learn, actually. There are lots to learn as a programmer. You are exposed to a lot of things. So there are lots to learn. So we shouldn't accept anything for what they are. And we should really, really, really be intellectually curious. It helps. It really helps. It really helps. It really helps. So this is a random Jason 10 hour. I know everyone knows Jason. Yeah. One guy came to tweet that in connection with the release of his book, someone from a different part of the programming world asked me, I'm sure the person was an African, asked me what C++ is used for these days. And the person asked, so what are some cool things you are doing with this? And Jason replied with a list of fields he's doing training with. So you should know, if you are doing C++, you know that you have a lot of work to do, because you have to go and impact the finance industry, the data industry, the automotive industry, the GPS, the smart glass, the aerospace industry, the audio processing, the antivirus, the image processing. It's a lot. It's a lot. So you know you can fight your ground if someone asks you where is C++ actually being used. Because a lot of people think that people could tell me that if I tell people C++ is used everywhere, they tell me I'm telling lies, that C++ is not used anywhere, and they can charge me to mention one place. And I'm like, I won't mention, you should go and do your research. I was like, I can't mention to you, you should go and do your research, because the people are JavaScript people, and all they think is that since they are doing websites, like the web is ruling the world, so they think web is ruling the world, so JavaScript is doing everything, and C++ is not doing anything. And I feel it's alarming. I think still, there are a lot of people who think C++ is not used anywhere. There are lots of people in this world who think C++ is not used anywhere. So, finding fulfillment in your purpose. So the best way to find fulfillment is to be an active contributor to open source projects. I won't lie to you, the first time I joined an open source project, I wrote a library, and that was interoperating with STD map. And when I finished writing the library was accepted by the community, and they had to put my name on it. So anyone who goes to the library could see that, oh, Emmanuel Nyarko is written as the author, and I was very fulfilled. I was very, very happy. I won't lie to you. And it was more of a motivation to keep me going because, and then I started working more on other libraries to write them for the community. So anytime I see that my name is written on it, I was like, oh, at least I did this. I've left a mark somewhere. People can see and know that, oh, okay, this is what I have done. And it was fulfilling. It was very, very fulfilling. So I urge everyone to be an active contributor to open source. I don't know whatever you are doing, but at least find time for open source projects. It's a very nice platform to learn. You can actually learn a lot. And most of the open source projects are tools we use in our everyday activities. Git is open source. Yes, our compilers, Clang, GCC, they are all open source. And if you get into open source, you're actually going to understand the whys of instructions. Like, as I said, I didn't understand tooling. So currently, with the NetBSD systems we are working on, I have to work on a tool that people can use to configure their network, how the quality of service of their network should work. So if you're able to, so when I started, I was like, I've met this tool again, like this tooling thing. I've read about it and I do know. So they sent me the link to the code base. I was like, it's just a simple main program with command line options using GitOps. And I was like, so this is what I've been looking for over 3 years. And I have read books and books and books and books, and I never got the answer. But it was just a simple link to a code base that helped me understand how tooling actually works. And so I feel everyone should participate in open source projects, I feel. And one thing to know is that if you want to learn how to use a device, contribute to its development, the person who designed the car actually knows how a car works more than everybody, because he knows where he puts the steers, he knows how he engineered the steers, he knows how he engineers the tires, the wheels, and the trunks and everything. So the person who engineered let's say the car example, knows how it works and knows it better than everyone using. But basically, he can get accidents with the car. It's normal. Maybe that will be due to his carelessness. But with the knowledge concerning how the car is engineered, I think he will be the best person to go to. Yeah. And how many of you know Tony Robbins? Tony Robbins, yeah. I like him. I think you guys should listen to him a lot. And he says that the secret to full fulfillment is contribution. Yes, are any speakers here? Yeah, you're a speaker, right? Why did you fly to the conference? To speak? To speak. But basically, you didn't come to speak. You came as a contributor to the conference, yeah. But through a process called speaking. Exactly, to give a talk. That was the process, but you actually came to contribute. And I'm sure when you were done, people clapped and you were excited. You were fulfilled that at least you came to do what you're supposed to do. Exactly. So I think the secret to full fulfillment is contribution. So in every field we should urge to contribute to whatever we do, and I think we will be fully fulfilled. And are we going to get people involved now? I feel the number of people in C++ development is a lot, but I also feel it's not a lot, because the people who are not is very large. The people who are not in C++ is very, 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 very large. And so how we're able to get them to change is never a matter of ability. I'm sure there are a lot of smart people not doing C++ because they feel it's hard. Yeah, but I think rather it's a matter of motivation and drive. So we should find nice ways we can motivate people to, if we place C++ at the center of the needs of software, I think we can get a lot of people to join. So if we can, someone can contribute and write a user interface in C++ for us, for the community, and it's really going to help people, a lot of people get to join, to use the language, to write and learn the language. So I think there are things that the community has ignored, but it's also good that we find people who can do the impossible. Yeah, we can find people to maybe you can contribute and write a web front-end interface that people can use. Can you for us? All right, so define the odds and do the impossible. My favorite chemistry, I was a science student, I did chemistry in high school, so I really like this woman a lot, Nyarko, and she had this quote I have printed in my room everywhere, that nothing is to be feared, only to be understood. Now is the time to understand more so that we may fear less. So it's basically, what she's saying is very, 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 very valid, because when I started C++ programming, I won't lie to you, I was very scared because of what I was hearing all around, that I cannot do C++, you cannot write C++, you cannot, C++ is bigger than you. Before you can join, you have to write your own programming language, you have to build your own operating system. That's what we are told, that if you've not written your own language, you cannot do C++. If you've not built your own operating system, you cannot do C++. You have to use C++ to engineer a car before you can be able to get into C++ development. And that's what we were told. So when we started, we were scared to do the language. We were scared to actually join the language. And I think as time goes on, we had to get into the talks to get into understand how it actually works before we were able to know that C++ is not hard. I think it's a myth. Yeah, and we actually have a job to close that myth. And no questions? Here's a question first.
Hi, thank you. So, as someone that's done some phone app development, I'm surprised to hear that people aren't using C++ at all, especially since there's still more than one phone platform. It's dramatically easier to write your common business logic in a C++ library and then only specialize the UIs based on which, if you're on Android or Apple. Does that, I don't know if you'd want to try to take that case back and say, hey, it would make, for your web developers, it'll be a lot easier if they write the actual business logic in C++ and then just the UIs are different, or if that's too much change to try to cause at once. I don't know. Just okay. What's your thoughts?
So basically, for what we are told from the African point of view, that most of the UIs are not written in C++. And you are saying you can get your mobile app there, logic written in C++. And I think this language is doing C++ interrupt Swift. Yes, Swift does C++ interrupt. But the main front end, it's not C++, right?
But that's the point. Sorry. The point isn't that the UI itself is written in C++. It's that if you're going to release an application for both Android and Apple, that you have some core business logic that your program is adding. It's not just the user interface.
Okay.
And if you write that core business logic part in a language that will interoperate with both the UI language on Apple and the UI language on Android, then you only have to maintain that core business logic in one implementation, as opposed to having an Android implementation and an Apple implementation, because those are slightly different programming environments, and you'll have slightly different bugs, and you'll have some things will work on Android and some things will work on Apple, but probably not both at the same time. Or it's much more work to get both to work at the same time. So it's a higher degree of specialization in that you have now people that will do the core business logic and people that will do each type of UI, but it means that the people that are doing the UI can be better at that UI, and the people that are doing the core business logic can be better at that core business logic. And I think when I was doing this, we ended up having we had two people doing the server-side stuff, one person doing the library code that was common for both Android and Apple, and then I think we had one person doing both UIs. So it wasn't a huge team, and we still found it to be a dramatic savings.
Oh, then I think I should take you to Africa when I'm going.
I'd love to go.
Who else? Mike?
You didn't talk too much about games, and I wonder if games isn't a way to make some inroads into your community. Unreal Engine is entirely C++, but it's accessible through a GUI using blueprints. So you can use that, then you can get into C++, compiles to mobile, compiles to browser, so it's making real software.
Okay, the game development I know, the people who do game devs in our community, most of them are C#.
Unity.
Yes, Unity.
Got it. No, but all of those people, if you're trying to convince them C++, you can say, it's not just Unreal Engine. There are multiple engines in C++. Only Unity. I mean, you're right that Unity is better in mobile, but it's an angle for you anyway. I don't know.
Okay, but even if they are convinced to C++, the idea of learning C++ puts them off. Who else? No question. Okay, I think that's all.